Okay, now we are starting section number 8, and it has to do with music. Oh, music. I grew up, and still to this very, very day, I love music with a passion, and I'm not talking rock music or that type of thing. I'm thinking of all the different kinds of music that are kind of like, maybe you'd call it maybe soul-soothing or inspirational, or you grab on to the direction of that song and it catches you. I mean, I remember songs from the 60s and coming along the way and things like that. And one of the very, very first songs that I remember, and I love this song. My parents, as my sister and I were young, and my other brother, who was born in '54. I was born in 1948, by the way. I've probably mentioned that already. But the first song that I can remember that I absolutely loved was "Onward, Christian Soldiers." And it was, we'd sing that almost every time that we went to this one specific church denomination in Brandon. And I loved that song. It was just an inspiration to me. But also, okay, songs like, this will catch you by surprise, but I've written this in one of my books, okay? Kenny Rogers, okay, just to use a couple of examples. Kenny Rogers and his song, "The Gambler." I love that song because it shows, okay, that we make choices in life, and you know the words of that song. You got to know when to hold them, you got to know when to fold them, you got to know when to walk away, you've got to know when to run. So very, very educational words at the same time. And whenever I'll visit YouTube just to play that song over and over again and whatnot. And in one of my books, I allude to that song of Kenny Rogers because it teaches something as well in the lyrics of that song. And or songs about driving in vehicles, driving in cars, and there's just all sorts of them. Sometimes we'll be reminiscing, my wife and I together, and we'll say, well, hey, do you remember that song or this song or whatever? And we'll look it up on YouTube, and sure enough, it's there. And so the other thing I wanted to mention to you was that in schools, in my experience in schools, every school that I ever taught in, there are memories pertaining to individual students and things that happened in these schools, and then interviews. Interviews was an absolutely incredible time. Often when I was teaching in the high school situation, I would make sure that the kids would come to the interview as well, because what I didn't want to have happen was that the parents were just going to talk to me. The kid was at home wondering, hey, what's the teacher saying about me, or what are my parents saying about me? No, the student was right there, so the facts were laid on the table right there, and nobody could kind of, you know, say that, hey, this wasn't said or this wasn't brought up or whatever the case may be. So it proved to be a very, very effective way for me as well to do interviews. And just to show you kind of the interesting thing that would happen at an interview, you know, and this was one situation where either maybe the student was working during the interview or whatever, but the parents said to me, well, he goes up to his room and we don't see him very often and we don't know what he's doing. And I said to them, I says, well, why don't you just go upstairs and talk to your child and find out what's going on? And their reply back to me was, oh, what? That's a good idea. We'll do that. And I'm just mind-boggling, thinking, well, you know what? Who has to tell you all of these kind of things which are kind of obvious? If you want to find out what's going on, then get involved and do something about it. And I had a very, very interesting couple of years at Shiloh Military Base, teaching out there. When that school was, the high school, it's no longer there. They bulldozed it down. But when it was under the full authority of D&D, very, very interesting place to teach when it was under the auspices and the leadership of D&D. Got all kinds of stories I can tell there. And I'll tell you that I actually had soldiers in my classroom going to school dressed in full uniform. So doesn't that sound interesting? And it definitely was, because there's always lots of stories and lots of accounts, and I would never ever release the names of anybody to onto YouTube or whatever, but definitely lots of stories that are worth the telling. So this brings to an end, okay, section number 8.